The following program deals with controversial subjects. The theories, opinions, and beliefs expressed are not the only possible interpretation. Viewers are invited to make a judgment based on all available information. Tonight on Encounters, The Hidden Truth.
These things were just flying all over.
Our team of investigators uncovers startling new evidence of alien contact.
Other intelligence has reached this planet.
From Boston, reporter Sandra Pinkney investigates claims of sinister alien abduction.
I'm a walking, talking human farm for them.
Are these the victims of extraterrestrial sexual abuse?
I've had sperm samples taken.
From California, Russell Rhodes uncovers frightening airline pilot reports of UFO encounters.
This wasn't an aircraft.
Are these unidentified craft a threat?
It was as big as a football field.
And from Germany, Natalie Brunt hunts for the truth behind these mysterious metallic discs discovered at this German crop circle. Are these strange plates proof of alien contact?
This is a message. This is indeed a message by a non-human intelligence.
Good evening, and welcome to Encounters, The Hidden Truth.
That truth's in the eye of the beholder. And in the next hour, we're going to meet some people who have incredible stories to tell.
Whether or not you personally believe in the existence of the supernatural, it's undeniable that many people are convinced that they have had experiences that no science can explain.
One of the most incredible of these experiences is called alien abduction. And according to a recent Roper poll, as many as 5 million Americans believe that they have been abducted by UFOs.
Now, it's been said that if 5 million people say a foolish thing, it's still a foolish thing, but something unusual is going on. Here's Sandra's report.
This is Mary, a professional woman living in New York City. This is Joe, a 35-year-old father living in Boston. And this is Colette, a single mother living in North Carolina. These people used to lead normal lives, but today they're a statistic, for they're certain that they have been repeatedly abducted by extraterrestrials.
They've entered my body without my permission. They're taking specimens from me. They leave scars on my body. They put things in my body. They take from my body. They implant. It's almost as like I'm a walking, talking human farm for them.
I've had sperm samples taken, and I've actually seen and held, been presented with hybrid children.
I live with a lot of physical pain as a result of procedures that are done to me. But I think even worse than that is the emotional pain.
I get stripped down, I'm laying on a table, and it's almost as if I'm having an abortion. I go through fetus extracts. I've been through fetus extracts. I have been walking around for 3 weeks at one point with something kicking. I'm a mother. I have been pregnant. I know what it feels like to have a baby inside of me. I know what it feels like to have a baby kicking and rolling.
These experiences are shared by millions who claim they've been abducted and in some cases physically examined by alien beings. No matter what you believe, these victims are convinced that their experience is very real.
Cambridge, Massachusetts is one of the world's great research centers. It's not surprising to find cutting-edge research going on here. It is surprising to learn that some of those studies include alien abductions. Dr. John Mack, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author of Harvard University, has studied this phenomenon. His research is shattering preconceptions about alien abductions and experiments on humans by alien beings.
Who is an abductee? Who is likely to be an abductee, we just don't know.
So what is this abduction phenomenon all about?
Fundamentally, the abduction experience is the entering into a person's life of some kind of other intelligence which appears as humanoid beings, which takes people out of their homes and does a series of physical procedures, the result of which seems to have to do with some kind of growth that people can undergo if they can face up to the truth of their experiences.
To aid in his research, Dr. Mack runs an abduction support facility in Cambridge, Massachusetts. This is significant because for the first time, the abduction epidemic has been treated with the seriousness that it deserves. People shamed into enduring their nightmare in silence have now begun to come forward. Other groups are organizing meetings like this one in Southern California.
Out in my mind because that ship reminds me of what I saw outside the window. That told my
These are sanctuaries where victims of UFO abductions can share their experiences, taking comfort in the fact that they are not alone.
Well, I thought you guys were laughing because you were different from me. You were abducted and I wasn't. I was just crazy, and you guys were laughing, humoring me along.
Because we did relate to what you were saying, yeah.
I was in the bathtub, and I reached down to scratch my leg, and lo and behold, I found these puncture marks. I'm just going to show these pictures to everybody in the group, just kind of pass those around.
This physical scarring is common. Even skeptical physicians can't always explain these marks. Many times victims wake up and discover bruises, lacerations, and scoop marks. This often triggers repressed memories of an alien encounter. Sharing photos, homemade drawings, and recollections can help victims cope with their nightmare and come to terms with their experience.
As I recall,
A key tool used to release these suppressed UFO memories is hypnosis. Yvonne Smith has performed hypnotic regressions on hundreds of abductees.
When I go through the process with them of hypnotic regression, I take them back to that particular time and place where this first occurred. And sometimes we don't get anything, and sometimes we get a whole lot of information. It's very, very difficult. You have to be very careful not to lead your subject into an abduction experience. So you have to pose the questions very carefully.
John believes he was abducted by aliens. Recently, he allowed our cameras to record his hypnotic regression. He consented, knowing that reliving the experience could be painful.
She feels so helpless.
Hypnotic trance enables John to travel back to the night of his abduction.
Yeah, I hope we're finished with.
Just tell me what's happening, John. Try not to hold anything back.
No, I'm just lying there trying to recover from this.
John recalls a painful experience when alien creatures forced him onto a table so they could perform excruciating experiments.
I was surprised to learn there was a sexual component to these procedures.
That involves the taking of sperm samples from the men, the taking of eggs from the women, sometimes the re-implanting of an egg that has been altered in some way. The women experience that a fetus is grown inside of them. The fetus will then be removed in a subsequent abduction. They feel that they are being used for some kind of breeding purpose.
And for 3 weeks, I walked around with something inside of me, kicking and rolling. And I'm saying to myself, thinking I'm crazy the whole time, but knowing I'm not, they're running another experiment on me. They planted another baby inside of me.
In one of my experiences, a taller being handed me a female child that was mine. And it was the most human-looking one I've ever been given. And it was definitely mine. It was the result of an egg that they had taken from me. And there was an unbelievable bond to that child, particularly because it was more human-looking than the other ones that I had been handed before. All I did was hold the child. That's all I did. And cried, because I knew it was going to be taken away.
Yes, I've definitely had the feeling that the infants I've been presented with were in some part my own. I want to understand. I want to be able to hold these infants. I want to be able to know these. Who are these people? I want to know.
I don't know all the answers to why this is happening, why they're producing these children, why they're taking them away. And it's that uncertainty and not knowing what's going to happen. There's a piece of me out there. There's a piece of me, my soul out there somewhere that I don't know what's happening with it. And that's hard.
Millions of abduction victims look for an explanation. Are they part of a mass hallucination or targets of a bizarre experiment? While waiting for an answer, they also wait for a little compassion.
But the hardest part of all of it has been how society treats you. That's the scary part. The way people look at you, the way people ridicule you because you don't fit the norm.
You want to hold on to another human being. You want compassion. You don't want sympathy, or I don't. You want understanding.
We can't force anyone to believe us, but please be considerate of the fact that we are living with something and living through something that causes a tremendous amount of pain, a tremendous amount of trauma, and we still have to live our day-to-day lives. We still have to get up and go to our jobs and pay our bills and have our families and do all the things that everyone else does.
If even one of these thousands of people have undergone this experience, then something beyond our comprehension might be taking place, something with grave consequences for the future.
Sandra, you know there's been some criticism of the techniques used to recover these repressed memories.
That's right, John. Some researchers have been accused of manipulating their hypnotized subjects, but there are many, many people involved in investigating this phenomenon. And the fact that these people all report just about the same experience suggests that something is definitely going on.
And the research undoubtedly will continue. Encounters will be back in a moment.
Coming up, Natalie Brunt hunts for the source of two strange metallic discs found at this crop circle.
We have never seen metallic plates like this.
Is this a form of alien contact?
This is indeed a message by a non-human intelligence.
They're called crop circles, huge geometrically perfect shapes that literally appear overnight carved right out of farmers' fields. Some believe they're UFO landing pads. Others think they might be some sort of cosmic road sign. And of course, many people just think they are hoaxes.
Recently, the story of these crop circles took a dramatic turn. For the first time, physical evidence of their creation may have been discovered. At first glance, they look like ancient Roman dinnerware, but some believe they are something far more dramatic, extraterrestrial artifacts left behind by the crop circle's mysterious creators.
The plate is like a map, the map of the crop circles. You know, the same signs you saw on the fields, you saw on the plate.
These are ancient, sacred symbols, and in my opinion, the phenomenon appears to reawaken our hidden memories of these ancient symbols of communication, to tell mankind that we are really entering a new age, the age when the gods return.
All indications are that this is part of a pattern of powerful, unusual intelligence showing itself on the planet.
Is an alien power drawing messages on a canvas of grain? Are these circles an elaborate global hoax? Our story of the latest development in this mystery begins on the morning of July 20th, 1991, when jogger Hans Slan discovered these patterns carved into the wheat fields of Grasdorf, Germany. 150 feet long and 50 feet wide, they were inscribed with ancient symbols that appeared to be in the lost Celtic language.
This is a message. This is indeed a message by a non-human intelligence.
After receiving a telephone tip, local journalist Claudia Briebach was one of the first investigators to arrive on the scene. She immediately ordered a series of aerial photographs for analysis.
They were just huge. They were really amazing because they were so huge, and I first thought it couldn't be a human being doing this. If it's a human being having done this, it's a genius, really. Because I think it was about 100 meters long, and the circles were exactly made, and it was really beautiful.
Our investigative team invited German researcher and author Michael Hessemann to analyze the origins of the Grasdorf circles. He began with a land survey to determine if the circles could possibly be a hoax.
If you fake them, you would really align them with the tram lines. but they are not in alignment to the trend lines. And it is exactly in an east-west alignment. And so really guide me to the conclusion that we have a real phenomenon and that they are not made by human beings.
Analysis of soil and plant samples taken from the Grasdorf circles revealed some unusual characteristics.
The stalks are bent but not broken. They lay down one by the next one next to each other in a circular pattern. We found molecular changes, we found genetic changes, we found all indications of a great heat.
Scientific tests performed by the Technical University in Berlin showed radiation levels inside the crop circles that were 172% higher than in the field around it. In April, psychic Helga Lundström visited another section of the Grasdorf fields, where the unexplained phenomena had been captured on film.
This is amazing. She really detected the right side of what we call the sun wheel, what is one of the circles we had in the pictogram. And it is really amazing how she, after 2.5 years, really detected the right side for this formation here.
The mystery intensified when metal detector tests of the crop circles uncovered 3 unusual metal plates. Each plate contained an image of the crop circle pictograph, exactly the same design that had been carved on the wheat fields. German historian Moschkotti Litvas helped analyze these metal plates, plates that were found to be made of precious metals, bronze, silver, and gold.
I went with the plates with another man together to Berlin. There is an examination institute, a very, very big institute, and they found there is only silver in the silver plate, and the bronze is very unusual. We have never seen metallic plates like this. If you look on this picture, you see there are a lot of circles, but there are only 3 circles surrounded by half circles, and that are the places they found the 3 plates. In all the other circles, they found nothing.
How could such elaborate designs appear overnight in the darkness? Why did these huge symbols mirror the images of the metal plates? These are only 2 of the many questions that surround these mysterious circles.
We may not have an explanation for the Grasdorf circles, but there is evidence that many other crop circles have been man-made.
When we come back, we'll take a close look at a crop circle with a very down-to-earth explanation.
When we return, the crop circle mystery continues.
This is an authentic thing that cannot be duplicated.
In a crop circle formation, the electrical conductivity is entirely different.
We've got some kind of real phenomenon on our hands.
Well, many people believe that crop circles have an extraterrestrial source. Even true believers can't seem to agree on their purpose. Some say they're UFO landing sites, others some sort of intergalactic art gallery. But to non-believers, there's one word that best describes these circles: hoax.
But recently, in a Maryland field, I learned that hoaxing one of these circles isn't as easy as it looks. In order to find out how a hoax might be executed, we met with sociologist Jim Schnabel. He told us that it was possible to fool some of the people all of the time.
The first formation I made, a friend of mine and I went in, and we had had a few beers, but we were still a bit frightened about being caught. Eventually we got used to it, though, and we made the thing. And within a few days, word got around that this thing had been made, and people started talking about it, and some people said it was a hoax and it was a mess, and other people thought it was genuine. We started learning from our mistakes, and pretty soon people were crowing over the formations we were making. I think there's a possibility that some simple formations around the world are real. I just think that it's a very rare phenomenon, and it's, in any given formation, it's more likely that it was man-made, unless you have some extraordinary evidence which shows that it was made by something else.
But with hundreds of crop circles appearing around the globe every year, compelling evidence suggests that all these circles could not be man-made. Researcher and author Steve Canada has been analyzing the phenomenon for more than 20 years.
The way we can tell that this is a genuine crop circle phenomenon is to look at the properties and verify that the stalks of the plants have been bent at a swollen node, and they continue to grow horizontally. The genuine formations have a smooth swirling to them, that is one direction on top and underneath the opposite. And the other feature that's been found is a weaving kind of effect of the stalks.
Strangely, in every single square foot of this 1993 circle, one wheat stalk was left standing, while the rest of the wheat was smashed flat.
The question would be, how in the world would anyone do that? This is an authentic thing that cannot be duplicated. The British Army's tried. The British Army's been very serious about this. They have tried to reproduce what they have found, and they haven't been able to do it.
Laboratory tests done on the crop circle stalks and seeds reveal mysterious cellular alterations within the grain. University of Michigan professor and biophysicist Dr. W.C. Levengood analyzed these plants and drew some interesting conclusions.
What I find is that in a crop circle formation, the electrical conductivity is entirely different than it is in a control sample or a hoaxed one or a man-made one. These intercellular changes that I'm talking about would be absolutely there's no way I know of any technology that could go out in the field and replicate this over a circle that's 80 to 100 feet in diameter.
Excited by these new findings, astrophysicist John Burke did a series of electrostatic readings on fresh crop circles.
We did experiments last year which showed that at least some of these electrical changes cannot be produced by people knocking crop down. So regardless of what percentage of these things may be produced by people, there's quite a few of them out there that aren't. And so very definitely we've got some kind of real phenomenon on our hands, yes.
If these elaborate designs are not created by a man-made technology, then who or what is responsible? The answer to that question continues to elude investigators.
Natalie, when you were examining these circles, what conclusions did you come to?
Well, John, with enough manpower and enough time, you can make a crop circle. But these gigantic, mathematically precise circles always appear overnight. And in most cases, no evidence of a hoax has been found. No tire tracks, no footprints, nothing.
And Encounters will be back in a moment. As a journalist and as a pilot, I've heard about things pilots have seen but simply cannot explain. Though I've never seen a UFO, I believe these witnesses are reliable and their stories quite credible. Recently, Russell Rhodes investigated some of these aerial encounters. Russell?
John, many pilots are frightened. Encounters has learned that not only have they seen UFOs in the air, they've been pressured into remaining silent on the ground. But now they're finally beginning to come forward. Here's my report. It happened on the night of November 17th, 1986, 35,000 feet over Alaska. A pilot from Japan Airlines reported seeing a UFO 2 times bigger than an aircraft carrier, flying dangerously close to his plane. He alerted air traffic control. This is the actual tape of their conversation that night.
That is firm. We do not have anybody up there right now. Can you give me the position of primary you're receiving?
The pilot tracked the enormous UFO for 10 minutes, and then it vanished into the night stars. Shaken, the pilot completed his scheduled flight, only to learn that he was grounded. He is not alone. Air traffic personnel are pressured into silence as well. This controller, who has tracked UFOs on radar, feels strongly that authorities such as the FAA do more than just discourage the filing of UFO sighting reports. Only on the condition that his identity not be revealed did he agree to talk to us.
Do you think there's actually a system in place to discredit people who might come forward?
Yes. There was one in Fairbanks that the controller saw something up to the north, and he reported it, and they made him look like an idiot. And he said, "Hey, forget it. I'm dropping the paperwork. I must have been mistaken."
You know, some people who see this might think you're seeing things. What would you say to them?
I know what I saw. And if they would choose to say that it was something different, they weren't there.
Dr. Richard Haynes, a retired NASA scientist who documents these sightings, helps pilots fight back. He defended the Japan Airlines pilot.
Captain Tarucci followed the book. He did everything by the book. He reported the phenomenon, which were multiple objects, by the way, not just one. He kept the airplane in control at all times. He had multiple eyewitnesses in the cockpit, and even at that, he lost his flying status. The chief medical officer for Japan Airlines told me Captain Tarucci was asked to stop his flying duties because the airline did not want to have pilots flying their airplanes who were seeing visual illusions.
Even the FAA did not dispute Captain Tarucci's claims because air traffic control had confirmed the UFO on radar.
Defender 1628 at register. I'm picking up a hit on the radar approximately 5 miles in trail, your 6 o'clock position. Do you concur?
They were very rational at the time when they landed at the airport. There was no appearance of any kind of drug or alcohol abuse or anything like that. They're very sincere about their situation and their descriptions, and basically we have no reason to doubt them with regard to what it is they say they saw.
But it was Dr. Haynes' extensive database of similar cases that helped Tarucci get his job back.
I went to bat for him, and I persuaded them, I think, that Captain Tarucci is not all that unusual because of all these other cases that I have. Second, that the objects he saw are not all that unusual, as bizarre as they seem to be to most people. And third, he's a good pilot.
Aviation pioneer Dick Russell's distinguished career includes 26 years as an air safety chairman and 5 years as spokesman for the Airline Pilots Association. He's flown virtually every passenger plane made since the DC-3. In the fall of 1956, Dick Russell was flying as a co-pilot when his flight captain pointed out the window.
And I looked up and I saw an object which was saucer in shape. It was approximately 50 or 60 feet in diameter. I was stunned and I said, "What is that?" And about that time, it zoomed across in front of my windscreen and stopped and then flew off at about a 45-degree angle, very high speed. I said, "What in the world was that?" He said, "Well, now you've seen one." But he says, "You can't tell anybody because they think you're nuts."
Ridicule and humiliation have been a constant for pilots ever since they first began to report UFO sightings during the Second World War. By the 1950s, although sightings were becoming more common, filing reports became a rarity.
The phone will ring one night, and here's a senior captain of an airline who says, "Gee, I've got to tell somebody my story." And then when I assure him it'll be confidential, which it always is if he wants, this wonderful story comes rolling out.
With well over 2,000 cases in his computer database, Haynes has found a remarkable consistency in the descriptions of these objects.
I have wonderful cases of the airplane is like here, and the object will be off the left wing, and it'll hop over to the right wing. One very interesting case I investigated involving a commercial transport flying across the country at night. The captain told me that he was on autopilot flying at cruise altitude and cruise speed when all of a sudden the airplane began to fly by itself, to deviate off, I believe, to the left-hand side.
The alarmed pilot noticed that all 3 of his compasses were pointing to different headings. Then he saw a bright object hovering by his left wing. He observed it for several minutes before it darted off in a flash.
That pilot did not report the sighting and spent years not talking about his UFO experience. Here in Los Altos, California, though, we found him. Neil Daniels is retired now and no longer silent about what he saw almost 20 years ago.
Air traffic control in Boston said, United 94, where are you going? And so I said, well, when we figure this out, I'll let you know. Whatever it was, it did cause a disruption in the magnetic field around the aircraft to the point where it did pull the aircraft off course.
The airplane is the focus of attention of the phenomenon for some strange reason, not the other way around.
Later on, I mentioned it to my boss, and he gave me a ration about, well, bad things happen to people that have sightings like that.
Neil Daniels wasn't sure what his boss meant by bad things, but bad things do sometimes happen to those who file UFO sighting reports.
Pilots know now that you can make reports all day long and nothing will be done about it, nothing will be investigated. They'll take your report and they lose it immediately. Military pilots have made reports many times. They've chased them. They have been sent out to chase it, to find out what they are. They come back with reports, and it's as far as it ever goes.
In the early 1950s, Art Schaff was flying 7 passengers, including 2 officers, from Eglin Air Force Base in Florida to Louisville, Kentucky, when he had a spectacular sighting. The next day, Schaff was thoroughly debriefed.
There was a full colonel who was chief of intelligence, and he's the one that called me in. I found out later that everybody was called in that was on that flight, and everybody apparently saw the same thing. Back in those days, when more than one person had a sighting like this, they used mass hallucination as a possible answer to the whole thing.
Schaff had been the first to notice the strange orange light hovering alongside the plane. He quickly pointed it out to his co-pilot.
Out of nowhere, it's alongside of us. These 3 huge glowing balls in a triangle. And it stayed right with us as we pressed on. And the colonel said, "Art, turn into it." And I said, "Forget it." And he kept it up. So I very gingerly dropped my left wing into this whatever it was, and it just took off like a streak.
Dr. Haynes showed us case after case of other pilot sightings, all with minute detail about the encounters.
Of course, many pilots don't believe in UFOs, but Dr. Haynes will often persuade them to carry his sighting forms along with them. And that will sometimes lead to a late-night phone call from an excited new believer.
And he says, "Dr. Haynes, you're never going to believe what just happened to me over Lake Michigan." And I said, "Phil, what do you think you saw?" He said, "There's no doubt in my mind that's a vehicle from outer space. Nothing could do what it did. It was as big as a football field," he said. 50,000 people could be on that thing. It was so big. And he showed me, moment by moment, as he's sitting in this position at first, where the object seems to be imaged on the windshield throughout the entire sighting. It disappeared behind the post here. It reappeared. It's a real object. It seemed to be under intelligent control. It had structure to it. They felt a slight shock wave at the nearest point when the object was doing its turn and then going away. By the way, he did not report this case to the authorities. He kept this to himself.
Dr. Haynes says he wonders how many other pilots out there are just keeping it to themselves. One has to ask the question, when will there be a system in place that will allow pilots to file UFO sighting reports without fear of being grounded? There are other questions, too. What are these objects?
This wasn't an aircraft. You know, been around too many of them. Optical illusion, 7 people saw it.
You place your trust and your life in the hands of a pilot every time you climb on an airplane. But there have been too many sightings by people that, well, have some credibility to put it off forever.
Can you honestly believe that with this vast space that we have out here, with as many heavenly bodies that are up there, that we're the only people? Doesn't seem possible to me.
It seems clear that pilots have been coerced into remaining silent about potential hazards they have encountered while flying. And this is dangerous for them and their passengers when we put our lives into a pilot's hands.
Flying is a serious business, and pilots are completely informed. The price for covering up the truth just might be paid in human lives. Encounters will be back in a moment. The modern era of UFOs began in 1947 with a series of dramatic sightings that culminated in the Roswell incident. According to many experts, a UFO crashed in New Mexico and a government cover-up began. As we're about to see, that cover-up may still be going on, and it isn't confined to just the skies over Roswell.
Recently, in response to constituent pressure, Congressman Stephen Schiff of New Mexico tried to retrieve records pertaining to the Roswell incident. That was the beginning.
I thought this would be a very routine matter, that I would request from the Defense Department their records. They would provide me what they could. I'd give it to the constituents who asked for it, and that would be the end of it. Unfortunately, this has been anything but routine so far.
Physicist and noted UFO researcher Stanton Friedman has been following the Schiff investigation since its onset.
He wrote a detailed request, 3 pages long, to the Secretary of Defense, Les Aspin, last year, asking for a full report and briefing on the Roswell story, because many of his constituents claimed that it was being covered up. Instead of getting a response that he expected, he suddenly hears from an Air Force colonel in the Pentagon saying, oh, the Roswell, all that UFO stuff is over at the National Archives. The National Archives says we don't have anything.
I couldn't begin to tell you why the Department of Defense has acted in this fashion. This is the first time that I can remember one agency simply referring me to another agency and washing their hands of the matter. And then in this particular case, the second agency, the National Archives, says they don't have anything. So this is beginning to look like a runaround.
Michael Lindemann, founder of the 2020 Group think tank, believes he knows why the government is refusing to release its documents.
There is very strong evidence, not only that other intelligence has reached this planet in numbers and diversity, but very strong evidence that our government, some people in government, know this and have treated it as a major secret. They did that for reasons which, I'll grant them, were probably good reasons. Today, they're stuck. They felt it was important to lie about it, and they've been lying for 50 years.
And if a congressman is unable to uncover the truth, what chance does the ordinary public have? But since 1947, things have changed. Eyewitnesses own video cameras. Phone calls to emergency hotlines are recorded. And with persistence, we can gain access to extraordinary tapes like these.
911. We were just wondering, have you heard anything about these lights that are flickering up here in what is it, the east-southeast area? It looks like a string of Christmas lights that's way up in the sky.
You are hearing the actual calls placed to a Western Michigan 911 line on March 8, 1994, following a number of UFO sightings. Police initially dismissed these sightings as an airplane, but local reporter Michael Walsh felt there was something more going on.
I've spoken with individuals who purported to have seen this. I've spoken with scientists, with government officials, essentially everybody who could shed some light on what this was or could have been. And I've received just question marks so far.
Okay, what do you have there, sir? There were at least 4 lights, and they were all flashing like, okay, they were the sequence. It was a kind of like a V, and there was 4 lights, and they were blinking back and forth. And there's no way, I mean, a plane's not that wide.
After several minutes, the dispatcher decided to call National Weather Service in Muskegon, which is about 30 miles north of Holland, Michigan, to ask if there was anything on their screen that they might offer.
This is Ottawa County 911 calling. You getting anything weird down in the southern Ottawa County area? Yeah, there's something big down there. Wait a minute, that's really strange. One of the people that called that I had happened to talk to said it looked like a bunch of cylindrical objects. Well, oh my God, what is that? They were going together and coming apart. Yeah, there's 3, and they're lengthwise. Now I'm getting 3 of them. They look like a triangle on my scope. They're very strong return. They're spiking, so there's something pretty solid. It's not precipitation or anything, especially up at that height.
We've tried to get in touch with as many sources at the National Weather Service as we can, including the radar operator. In the weeks since this event, we were told that the operator was on furlough and was unavailable.
In fact, public authorities who witnessed the phenomenon, including a police officer dispatched to the scene, have been mysteriously unavailable for comment. But the evidence speaks for itself. And 2,000 miles away, more evidence was being captured on videotape. The location, Roswell, New Mexico.
These things were just flying all over. They were doing incredible maneuvers. I saw a dark object that appeared like a cigar-shaped object that would zoom in between these. They almost looked like they were going to collide. And be coming this way, and this dark object would go right in between and then disappear in the clear blue sky.
What they're doing is just like something I've never seen before. The maneuvers that they do. On the March 5th sighting, there's a half circle that automatically heads into a 45-degree angle. I've never seen a plane do that. I've never seen a bird do that. A balloon just floats in the air, so it couldn't have been a balloon. And it was way, way, way up there.
Mutual UFO Network video analyst Jeff Sainio analyzed the Escamilla footage.
Here we've got a daytime video. You can clearly see what's going on, and you also see multiple witnesses to this. You can hear them. You can hear children, and children are good observers, and they're terrible actors.
I see it, it's right there. Others too.
Encounters analysis of the Escamilla footage only deepens the mystery. When the footage is slowed down, one can clearly see some sort of superstructure on top of the object. And when a still frame is selected, enlarged, and then electronically enhanced, this unusual superstructure becomes even more apparent. It's obvious the Roswell UFO is no ordinary aircraft.
This is clearly not a fake. There's too many people involved. It's not an aircraft because it's overhead for too long and silent. The closest possibility would be as a weather balloon, but based on the limited shape information I have, it doesn't seem to match that. And most importantly, both of these objects appear to generate whirlwinds out of the bottom, and that eliminates pretty much any conventional object.
Public officials prevented from talking about events documented on both audio and videotape. A congressman denied access to official files. Pilots and air traffic controllers being pressured into remaining silent. The cover-up seems to be continuing.
Keeping secrets is easy. You don't tell anybody. You make sure people are thoroughly investigated, and you make them sign agreements, and you learn very quickly that the penalties for breaking security include death, life imprisonment, forfeiture of all possible future benefits, heavy fines.
Certainly, if we go back to the Roswell incident as an example, we know that there are people who were warned off very matter-of-factly, very distinctly. The mortician Glenn Dennis told, if you speak a word of this, someone will be picking your bones out of the sand. The sheriff, George Wilcox, told that if he spoke a word of what he'd seen, and he'd seen a lot, he would be killed, his wife would be killed, and his children would be killed. Now this can only be called terrorism.
That story set the tone for almost 47 years of massive misrepresentation and cover-up.
The question remains, how long can a cover-up hold before the weight of evidence washes it away?
Here's the question you have to ask yourself. You can say, well, maybe the government knows something so terrible that they can't tell us. If that's true, then we are not living in a government of, by, and for the people. We have a right to know, to make decisions.
We've entered a time in our history when the people hate government lies. Therefore, it's not just a question of telling them an uncomfortable truth, but admitting a very long-standing lie, which was aggressively defended.
I put everything on the shelf because of this, because I know what we have. It's unidentified flying objects that we have on these tapes. I want the answer so I can go on with my life.
One need only examine recent American history to find parallels for this pattern of government cover-up. But as we've also seen, the truth can be hidden for only so long. Encounters will be right back.
If you would like to contact us here at Encounters, write to Encounters, P.O. Box 36B47, Los Angeles, California, 90036. To contact us by phone, call 213-925-1UFO. Or to contact us online, visit the Encounters forum on CompuServe by typing Go Encounters or at the following number. If you have a story you'd like us to investigate, we'd like to hear from you.
Only stranger than we imagine. It's stranger than we can imagine. We hope that over the last hour, we've given you something to think about. The decision, whether to believe or not, is up to you. I'm John Marshall. Good night.
Hi, I'm Kylie Travis. In just 5 days, I'll be starring in the premiere of the hottest new series of the summer, Models Inc., this Wednesday on Fox.
Now, stay tuned for the show TV Guide just named one of the best new series of the year, The X-Files, next.